I didn't know it was the Cuban Missile Crisis. I nearly started World War III.
Okay, in hindsight, there's no need for a review. That one line should be enough to get you to watch this. Merry Christmas and happy holidays, everyone. I hope you're having a nice month of skyrocketing RAM prices, no Half-Life free, and AI-generated Christmas ads telling you should hate Christmas. It's like I'm watching a computer transmitting suicidal tendencies into my brain. As much as the Christmas season tends to lift my spirits, it's been a little hard to remain an optimist as of recent. And I'm sure you're sick of these corporate bigwigs trying to push cynical garbage onto you that's more often than not completely AI generated. Fortunately for you, I have burnout, so you won't be getting a long list of videos about me pissing and moaning about things this month just to chase the December ad revenue. I'm out here taking care of myself, and one of the best acts of self-care I can do at this time of year is to rewatch one of my favorite movies of all time, and a movie that I am simply astounded doesn't get the attention and recognition it deserves for being the greatest Christmas movie ever. In my opinion. Which around these parts translates to correct in cartoonese.
It's impossible.
They used to say it was impossible to teach women to read. Follow me.
R for Christmas is a 2011 animated movie released as a collaboration between Sony Pictures Animation, whose previous film before this was Open Season 3, so you can guess how good their reputation was before Spider-Verse, and Aardman, the one studio in the world that actually makes me a little proud to be British. Well, the film follows Malcolm, Steve, Grand Santa, and most importantly, Arthur Claus, the four most recent members of the Claus family, a long lineage of people taking up the mantle of Santa Claus over multiple generations. When a single child ends up being missed though, Arthur is determined to make sure their present gets delivered no matter what, while the other Clauses' viewpoints on tradition and progress clash, and ultimately there's a lot of commentary on that that's really important and handled super well, but whoa, look, Christmas, Christmas, Christmas! I know that there have been a handful of videos with a decent amount of views talking about Arthur Christmas over the years. Heck, it even got a Nostalgia Critic video glazing it to high heaven. But even then, it feels like barely anyone acknowledges Arthur Christmas outside of the UK. In the UK, this film is actually fairly well known, at least in Bristol anyway, which is where I grew up, and it's also where Aardman is located, so that makes sense actually. Whatever the case, Arthur Christmas rarely ever gets its flowers, and I think that's a crying shame because it's a genuinely fantastic movie and never fails to get me into the Christmas spirit. I've been told that the marketing and reactions to the trailers weren't very strong back in the day, but I personally can't find any real proof of people trashing them for any particular reason. I will say though, in retrospect, that using a Justin Bieber cover of Santa Claus is Coming to Town as a selling point back in 2011 probably wasn't winning too many people over. I can also probably see some die-hard Aardman fans being skeptical given Aardman's specialty has always been stop motion, and the last time Aardman ventured into CG animation was with Flushed Away, which was an acquired taste. And frankly, I do think it's a tragedy that we'll probably never get a stop-motion Christmas movie from Aardman ever. But potential reasons for skepticism aside, I think Arthur Christmas looks great for an animated movie released in 2011 and still holds up pretty well today. I'm not exactly the biggest fan of the character designs, especially for the elves. Again, I think this kind of design will look far more natural in claymation rather than CG, but everything else looks great. The opening sequence alone is still impressive with the amount of things going on in the background. There's so many background gags and little details that I guarantee you'll find something new to look at each time you rewatch it. Despite how admittedly f***ing ridiculous this is, I love everything about the militarization of the elves and how expertly coordinated it all is. I already glazed just how impressive the opening is from an animation and comedy standpoint, but not only is it just the most logical explanation for how Santa can successfully exist in today's world, it's also intentionally jarring and a great way to set up this movie's commentary on tradition versus progress, but I'll save that for later. For now though, Arthur Christmas is one of the funniest animated movies I've ever watched, and I won't be taking questions.
Toronto's in Canada. The Santas always come through Canada. Nobody lives here. It's nice and quiet.
It's usually a safe bet that an Aardman movie is going to deliver on good jokes and background gags, but Arthur Christmas is just a constant barrage of witty dialogue and well-delivered jokes, and despite being a Christmas movie, there's a fair amount of dark jokes that just sneak up on you.
That's the girl that Santa hates! She runs away, alcoholic by the age of 9, dead before she's even...
I'll go out on a limb and say I think this is probably Aardman's funniest movie. Like, I adore Wallace and Gromit, Chicken Run, Shaun the Sheep, Pirates, they're all classics for a reason, but the joke per second ratio in Arthur Christmas knocks them all out of the park. Grand Santa alone is one of my favorite animated characters ever because he gets like 60% of the funniest jokes in the movie.
Serengeti National Park, Tanzania!
Rubbish, how can you possibly be sure?
The GPS on my ho-ho, sir!
Take her! Take the...
Outside of the jokes though, there are very few Christmas movies that actually manage to make me teary-eyed at points, and I mean that in the best way. There's nothing heartbreaking or devastatingly sad in Arthur Christmas. Like, yeah, there's some sad moments, but overall it's a film that is so incredibly heart-lifting and warm outside the mentions of the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Nearly started World War III.
That it legitimately gets tears of joy out of me. It's a reminder to myself that I'm not a stone-cold bitch and that I'm more than capable of processing this much unabashed joy. How about that? Like, if you're feeling down at any point, even if it ain't Christmas, I swear to Christ, this movie is a cure. And I'm on my hope maxing shit right now, so inject the happiness directly into my veins. Anyway, Are for Christmas, the film, the plot, what's actually going on here? Well, the film seeks to answer the age-old question of how does this fat fuck deliver billions of presents every single night, and also how would Santa and his elves go about undetected in modern society with all of our fancy cameras and technological advancements and smartphones and
Whoopie-doo, aren't you the fancy Nancy?
The film takes these questions and answers them with the most obvious solution. Give Santa a Star Destroyer. What? As we see during the opening, Santa Claus is a title passed down through generations of fat old men who take on the role and deliver presents every night. On top of this, to keep up with the times, the current Santa, named Malcolm, has ditched the old sleigh and 8 reindeer in favor of him and a large number of elves traveling the world in a ginormous aircraft super sleigh with built-in active camouflage and the ability to travel faster than basically anything on Earth. Israel is crying, with their operations being handled in a massive control room underneath the North Pole by Steve, Malcolm's son and the next Santa in line. And then there's Arthur, the youngest son of Malcolm, who humbly works in letters, reading and writing to all of the kids who send letters to Santa. Arthur in general is such a deeply likable protagonist. The guy embodies the spirit of the holidays, and despite his clumsiness and fear of pretty much everything that exists, he possesses such strong empathy and a genuine love of Christmas and the perceived magic of Christmas that drives him to make sure every kid has their perfect Christmas. And it's these qualities that spring him into action when it's revealed a child, one single child out of billions, had gone unaccounted for. Even when Steve, as well as his father Santa, the man, the myth, the legend he admires more than anything in the world, tells him that nothing can be done. It's a simple story on its surface, and yeah, it's not a very surprising one, but it doesn't need to be. And one of my absolute favorite parts of this story is not just how clear it is that it's written by people who unashamedly love Christmas and all that it means to kids and adults alike, how it cuts through the cold corporatization of Christmas that we see basically everywhere now to the true heart of the holidays that many have lost sight of. No, my favorite part of this story is the way it handles the whole debate on old Christmas traditions versus today's progression, as well as the generational divide. And I don't think I need to go on a whole rant about how this subject is tied to Christmas. Are for Christmas has always stood out to me because it's one of the few animated movies I've seen that manages to convey the pros and cons of both, refusing to pick a side and acknowledging that it isn't wise to completely write off either or to rely on only one of them specifically, while still cutting through the noise and pointing out the obvious true meaning of the holidays that gets lost in the scuffle. It does this through each of the 4 clauses. Grand Santa obviously represents the past, most obviously his hatred of new technology and his insistence on doing everything the old-fashioned way. Steve represents the present day. He's completely changed the way Christmas is done through technology, mostly for the better, but has a complete aversion to the old ways on top of having a very cold and corporate outlook on Christmas in general.
Arthur, Christmas is not a time for emotion.
Dog. What? Malcolm, the current Santa, doesn't fall on either extreme, but still has to battle with the idea of retiring from a job he loves. And Arthur represents the future, or, well, the ideal future, I guess, as he doesn't care how old or new the method is so long as the present makes it in time, having a much clearer outlook compared to the rest of his family, who all eventually come to realize this as well, in a scene that still genuinely moves me to happy-go-lucky tears over a decade later. To this day, I rarely see movies, especially animated ones, tackle this subject as thoughtfully as Are for Christmas does, and I think that makes the movie really special, if it wasn't special enough already. I really want to say more and just gush about this movie all day, but I'd rather anyone watching this video who hasn't checked the movie out yet go and do so. My words can't do it enough justice, and it forever frustrates me that barely anyone talks about it in any capacity, but it really is that good. I guess one other thing I can praise is that the soundtrack of this movie is noticeably pretty damn good and memorable, and I can't remember the last time I said that for an orchestral soundtrack. Usually that shit just goes through one ear and out the other. But anyway, that was my short review of Are for Christmas. Go watch it. And if I may for 1 second address my longtime viewers, if you're new here, don't worry too much about this part, you have yourself a great day. I do apologize for not uploading anywhere near as frequently as I used to ever since September. The truth is that I'm getting incredibly burnt out with this whole cartoon reviewing thing. I know most people know already, but I've been doing this stuff pretty much non-stop since I was only 15, and I'm like 21 now. I'm still fairly young, but I won't lie and say my interests and tastes haven't been changing for a while. I've always had some passion for animation, but it's slowly been dwindling for a while, and I can't really hide that anymore. I feel like half the time I have to force myself to finish a video now, even if I originally started it because I was genuinely interested in making it. The passion just isn't there at this point, and I've been looking into other projects I could be working on that are completely outside of animation and maybe even completely outside of this channel. Now don't flip your shit, I'm not throwing in the towel, you'll know when I do, and I won't be for a long time. This is my job after all. But I do just want to flag this up for you guys because uploads are likely going to stay relatively infrequent unless I feel like absolutely must make a video on something that I actually give a shit about. I don't want to force myself to make videos that I'm only a teeny bit interested in just to keep the lights on. And besides, I've had a good enough year where I feel I can take a break for a bit. I've only got like 1 or 2 more videos planned for this month, and then afterwards you're probably not going to see me for like all of January most likely. I'm sorry for all of you guys who are waiting for the Miraculous video. It's very likely that video is not going to see the light of day at all. I just don't enjoy working on it, and I don't want to turn my dream job into something that I hate doing. With all that said, I hope you guys have a great day, have a good Christmas, yeah, see ya.
And you're choking up because you could never choose.